Hello and welcome back to Linux Academy. In this video, we're going to look at file processing in Python. Firstly, let's set up a variable with the full path and name of the file we want to process. File name equals var log secure. For those of you that don't know, this is where you will find all the hacking attempts on your Linux server. Let's read this file one line at a time and print the lines to screen. Using a for loop and the open statement on a file, we can just simply iterate on the file. As the loop runs, it's going to assign every line to the variable line, which we can just print out. Reading a file line by line is generally the preferred way, especially if you have a big file. But Python does allow you to read the file in one go, which is also known as slurping the file. By using the function readLines on your file handle, which will return a list of all the lines. Then, using a for loop, we can print out each of the lines. Next, let's see how to write to a file. First, let's set up a variable named filename. In order to write to a file, open the file up with the parameter w. This will create a file if it does not exist and overwrite if it does exist. Then just simply use the file write function and send the text. To append to a file, simply open it up with a parameter a and write to it just like before. And now we can go over to our Linux shell and confirm the contents of the file. Let's go back into our Python shell. Another cool thing about Python is the built-in support for handling CSV files. Let's look at an example CSV file. This file contains a list of servers, their names, IP addresses, and installed OSs. Using the CSV module, we are going to process this file and count the number of different operating systems that we have running. So let's go back into our Python shell. Let me clear my screen real quick. Let's start off by importing the CSV module, then opening up the file just as before. To parse this file as a CSV, we are going to use the reader function from the CSV module and pass it the file handle. At this point, I'm also going to define a dictionary that's going to hold my counts. Now simply iterate over the reader, which is going to return one row at a time, where each row is a list of columns. Let's hop back into our Linux shell and look at that file again. As you can see, the operating system information shows up in column 3, which 0 relative is actually column 2. This means that the row index 2 is going to have the name of the operating system. Now, by using the trick we learned back in the dictionary module, we are going to increment the OS counts every time we see the same operating system. Now print out OS counts and we have our results. For the last thing in this video, let's look at how to open up a file safely. You might be opening a file that does not exist, or maybe it is locked by another process and you don't have access to it. In either of those cases, Python will give to gracefully deal with such errors, you should use exceptions. Let's look at an example here. We're going to say try, give it a variable file name equals var log not there, and then iterate over the file as usual and print out the lines. Next, we are going to catch some exceptions. First one is IO error. This gets thrown if the file cannot be found or you cannot read the data. And we can also have a default exception catcher to catch any other unknown exceptions. Then an else statement, which will only print if we were successful in opening and reading the file. Upon execution of this code, as we can see, all we get is a file does not exist. It does not result in a fatal error that kills your script. That's it for this video. Go ahead and mark it complete and go over to the next one.